What's round and has a bad temper? A vicious circle. Dinner that night was not exactly a barrel of laughs. In fact, I can't remember a word that was said. I know what words didn't get said. Mom, Dad, my teacher wants to see you. Every time I tried to get the words out, I felt like I was choking. Mom noticed that I didn't have my usual appetite. "Are you feeling okay, Bobby?" she asked. "Is something wrong?" "Maybe the smell of the shampoo gave him a headache," said Grandma. I just couldn't get up the courage to give my parents the note from Mr. Matus. I decided to sleep on it, but that wasn't a good idea either. I had trouble getting to sleep, and when I finally did, I slept like I was dead. No dreams, nothing. At 6:30 a.m., the alarm went off. I put my head under the pillow and fell back asleep. The next thing I knew, Dad was shaking me so hard, I practically fell out of bed. "Leave me alone. I just got up yesterday," I mumbled. My father looked down at me. He had a little smile on his face, as if he were enjoying himself. I wanted to wipe it off his face. He stripped the covers off the bed. "Get up." I opened one eye. 2 minutes, I begged him. "Now," Dad said. "How did you get so lazy?" he demanded. "Practice, practice, practice," I told him. Dad stomped out of the room. "Is Bobby up?" I heard Mom ask. Let me put it this way. He doesn't have any covers on his bed, and his eyes are open. "The boy does hate to get up in the morning," said Grandma. "Jimmy could never get out of bed and get to school on time, and Grandma, you coddled him," said Mom. "You always let him sleep late. I'm trying not to do that with Bobby." "You say that," said Dad, "but who is it who always has to drag Bobby out of bed? Me. Why don't you try it for a change?" I pulled the covers back over my head. It was cozy in there. I wished I could stay there all day. I didn't even hear footsteps come into the room. The next thing I knew, something cold and wet was dripping on me. Mom was standing over me with a wet washcloth. A wet, cold washcloth. "Okay, Bobby, out of bed now. Or do you want a wet washcloth in the face?" "Mom, what are you doing?" I stared at her. "Your father gave me a challenge," she said. "Cut it out, Mom. This is scary." She'd never done anything this drastic before. "I want you to get out of bed and get ready for school." "Are you trying to prove that you can be just as tough as Dad?" I groaned, rolling away to avoid the dripping washcloth. "Bobby," warned Mom, "don't give me any of your back talk." Why do they always call it back talk when you tell them the truth? "I'll rise, but I won't shine." "Enough jokes," said Mom, but she actually smiled. "Will you get dressed, or do you want me to do it?" I wasn't about to have Mom dress me. I shook my head and got out of bed. "Hey, Ma, was that a joke?" I asked her. "Just get dressed," she said. Suddenly, she sounded tired once again. Once she left the room, I got dressed in record time. When I got to the kitchen, Grandma handed me a glass of orange juice. "Good morning, Bobby," she said. "Morning, Grandma." I gave her a kiss on the cheek. "So, what's on the agenda at school for you today?" asked Dad. He made it sound like school was an office. "Are you going to do any work for a change?" "I do plenty of work," I mumbled. I was sick of his sarcasm, but I was sick about something else, too. I knew I had to give Mom and Dad the note from Mr. Matus. Most of the time, Mr. Matus doesn't sound like other adults. But when he said, "Don't even think about not giving them the note," I knew I had crossed a line. Mr. Matus would never let me pretend that I had lost the note. He'd call my parents himself and tell them everything. Mom, Dad," I mumbled, "my teacher wants to see you." As if all the molecules in the room had stopped moving, Mom and Dad just froze and looked at each other. Then I tried to hand the note to Mom, but Dad took it. "I didn't do nothing," I said as Dad read it. Dad glared at me. "You don't even know how to speak English," he said. "No wonder you're failing at school." "I know how to talk," I mumbled. I realized that I had slipped and said the same stupid double thing that Mr. Matus had talked about. I just made a mistake. Dad read Mr. Matus's note. "I think, young man, you've made more than one mistake. You seem to think the rules apply to everyone but you. You've been lying to us, saying that you've done your homework." I cringed. I had lied to him. This wasn't the time to tell Dad that I had a bet with Willie to see if I could make the Guinness Book of Records. "Tell your teacher that I'll be there today at 3 o'clock, said Dad. "I'll have to get someone to cover me at work, but I'll be there. You'll cost me money, but I'll be there. He hadn't even asked Mom if she could come at that time. Mom played with her napkin. What time did you say again? She asked into the air, as if she weren't really sure who she was asking. She was far different from the character who had stood over my bed with a wet washcloth. I almost liked that person better. 3 o'clock, said my father. His teeth were clenched. He really didn't care whether Mom came or not. I'll try to be there, she said. Bobby, I'm so disappointed. I thought... Her voice trailed off. Mom often didn't finish sentences. Dad finished this one for her. Your mother thought that you were different from Bobby, but you keep going out of your way to prove to us both that she's wrong. I'm not Jimmy. I screw up in my own way. And you think that's something to be proud of? Said my father. I didn't even know why I bothered opening my mouth. Like Dr. Deal, my father had made up his mind about me long ago. Do you want to hear a joke, Bobby? Asked Dad. I was sure he was going to come out with something sarcastic about my not doing my homework, or that I was just like Jimmy. I wish I had bet on it. I would have won. What's round and has a bad temper? He asked. I don't know, I mumbled. A vicious circle, said my father. I don't get it, I said. A vicious circle is when you keep repeating the same mistake over and over and over again and can't stop. That joke's nasty, I shouted at him. It's mean and vicious. Bobby, don't raise your voice to your father, said Mom. Bobby's right, said Grandma. That joke had a nasty edge. It was a cruel thing to say to your son. I thought you and Bobby liked jokes, said Dad, sounding disgusted. He got up and threw his napkin on the table. Ah, breakfast time at the Garrick house. Snap, crackle, pop.